Well, she's had a busy week. I wonder if this burst of hyperactivity has anything to do with her leadership bid. But as her shadow, I will say this: I am rooting for her. I am rooting for her in her tussle with the Health Secretary as to who gets to replace the Prime Minister, although I fear my endorsement may not be entirely helpful with her colleagues on her side of the House. Now, let me start by saying this. Immigration under successive governments has been far, far too high. That has included illegal immigration, which since the general election across the Channel has surged, with 10,000 illegal immigrants crossing just in the 75 days the Home Secretary has been in post alone. Last year, the first year of a Labour government, there were a record ever number of new asylum claims, and the number of illegal immigrants accommodated in hotels has gone up under this Labour government, even though they promised they would reduce numbers. But of course, besides illegal immigration, on which this government is so clearly failing, legal migration has been far, far too high as well, absorbing the equivalent of half the new housing supply in recent years. Allowing mass low-skilled migration is actually bad for the economy, not least when we have 9.5 million working-age people here out of work. And mass low-skilled migration without integration has placed all kinds of pressures on society, not least because there are 1 million people here who don't speak English at all or properly, or the fact there are 10,000 foreign citizens in prison. Where I suspect we do agree is that limited, very limited, high-skill migration is a good thing, but the days of mass low-skill migration must come to an end. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, there is much in this statement I support, not least because so much of it is so familiar. The idea of a 10-year route to ILR is something that we proposed in amendments to the government's bill, I think around about 9 months ago. Inexplicably, the Labour Party inexplicably voted against those measures here just a few months ago, and now they've adopted them. We also proposed removing benefits from foreign citizens, including those on ILR who don't have British citizenship, and this consultation document now looks at doing the same thing. So I am delighted, Madam Deputy Speaker, to see that the Shadow Home Secretary, upon arrival at number 2 Marsham Street, has got out the copy and paste function on her laptop and started copying and pasting conservative policies. Now, I do, however, have one or two detailed and specific questions, which I am asking in a spirit of constructiveness, given she has adopted so many conservative policies. Now, she said importantly that these policies on ILR qualification would apply to those people here already. She is absolutely right to say that, and I support it. She mentions transitional arrangements. I would just urge her to be very cautious about that, lest it creates loopholes. But does she have an estimate she can give to the House as to when these new measures will be implemented? Because the rules that she referred to took effect, I think the previous rules around legal migration started in January 2021. So those people arriving on those rules will become, under the present ILR rules, eligible from January 2026, just a few weeks' time. So when will these changes get implemented? I hope as soon as possible. Now, she also mentions that to qualify for ILR at 10 years, you need to have made national insurance contributions. I've tried to get through the consultation document in the last half an hour. I think I'm right in saying that the qualifying threshold is to have earned £12,570 for a period of 3 years. She'll perhaps correct me if I've got that wrong. But that does strike me as a very low level of earnings, and I would urge her to consider setting that level higher. £12,500 for 3 years would not represent a net economic contribution to this country. I think that threshold should be set a great deal higher, and I would urge her to seriously consider that. Now, she also mentions the possibility of volunteering, getting people ILR at 5 years rather than 10. We know how people game the system when it comes to immigration, for example, by pretending to convert to Christianity to get asylum. So I would urge her to just draft those rules very carefully and be extremely cautious about that, lest she creates some loopholes. I would also ask her to consider adopting one last Conservative policy, since she appears so enthusiastic about them, and that is to introduce a binding cap on legal migration, voted for by Parliament each year, so this House can democratically decide what the level of inward migration is. She's adopted so many of our other policies. I strongly urge her to adopt that last one as well.
Home Secretary.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I suppose I should start by saying I'm pleased to see that the Leader of the Opposition let the Shadow Home Secretary have a go today. He seems rather overly concerned about my personal future. May I suggest that he should worry about his own and that of his party? And one good way to secure the potential future of the Conservative Party would maybe start with an open and honest acknowledgement of their track record in government. Yeah. Dare I say it? Maybe even an apology for messing up the system so badly in the first place. I have to say, given their current track record, they barely have the right to ask questions, let alone propose solutions. Like settlement, it's my view that you have to earn the right to offer solutions, and I would say to him one way of earning that right would be to apologise for what the Tories did first and foremost. He asked a specific question in relation to when these changes will come into effect. It's a 12-week consultation. It will end in the middle of February, and we would anticipate making changes and to begin the phase-out of those changes once adopted from April 2026 of next year. As he knows, the immigration rules usually change twice a year, every year, and that is when we would begin to start making some of those changes. Some potential changes would require technical fixes and solutions that may take a little longer, but the intention is to start from April of next year. He made the point on the qualifying threshold around £12,000. He will note that that's the national insurance contributions threshold that we have used, and that is specifically because that is one of the quickest ways to establish whether somebody is in work or not. So it's designed to give an indication of the period spent in work. He will, of course, know that there are different income thresholds for the different routes by which people can come into the country, and those are not being changed. He made a valid point on ensuring that the new system, as we develop it, mustn't have any loopholes. I will, of course, be very alive to that. And as we discussed at length in the House on Monday, there is a relationship between some types of visa overstaying and, of course, coming straight into the asylum system as well. And I'm very alive to those risks, and we will do everything we can to shut that down. This will be, in the end, a whole package of reforms across both the illegal migration system and dealing with asylum, as well as legal migration, to clamp down on abuse and retain public confidence in running a migration system overall and in the asylum system in particular. And what can I say on the cap? I mean, the cap has had a long life in the Conservative Party, and I would just gently say they never managed it in 14 years themselves. I don't think we're going to be pursuing that failure now.
As the descendant of immigrant grandparents, I have a high degree of empathy with the Home Secretary's opening remarks about her own family. Would she agree with me that the reason that both main parties are facing the possibility of an electoral bloodbath is not so much about the overall levels of immigration, but about that fraction of it, which is still a very large number of people who come to this country on small boats and by other illegal means. We do not know what they believe, we do not know what values they have, and in many cases, because they destroy their documents, we do not even know who they are. Can she explain how the measures she's outlined today will have an impact on deterring that sort of person from breaking into our country?
Well, let me say to the honourable gentleman, I've acknowledged the way that the way the system is working or not working, being more the appropriate way to describe it, is causing deep unease across the country, including in my constituency, including of those people who are of immigrant backgrounds themselves. And it is that sense of unfairness. A lot of people in my constituency regularly report to me what they see as abuse of visas, overstaying as a particular problem. Others are more concerned about small boats. I acknowledge that those concerns are legitimate and real and felt deeply across the country. country. That's why I think it's so important that we rebuild public trust in the overall system, both dealing with illegal migration and legal migration as well, based on the principles of fairness and contribution, and give public confidence that the rules that we have can be maintained, can be enforced, and that they will be followed properly. He's right that things like the destruction of documents and other ways in which people seek to frustrate our ability to remove them from this country is driving some of the discontent. That is why the reforms that I've set out in the asylum policy statement are designed to say to those making the calculus in the north of France, don't get on a boat, it's not worth it, that is not the way to come to this country. And it is why, as we build safe and legal routes into this country, which will be a clearly much more privileged way of entering this country with a faster path to settlement, as I've said today, at 10 years, it will show people making that calculus very clearly which path is worth it and which one is not.
Well, the Home Secretary loves our country, and I love her efforts, frankly, because it's not just the fate of this government that depends on her success, but good community relations and saving dozens of lives at sea, and, let's be frank, probably our political fate also. So will she undertake to be judged not just by the strength of this announcement and words spoken in the House of Commons, but actually results, so that we do actually make a real contribution to stopping these boats? And so will she be prepared to constantly ratchet up the pressure so that if you're sitting in France, you think, is it worth the risk? I've got virtually no chance of being allowed to stay in Britain forever. I will have my case reviewed very regularly, every 2 years. I will be sent back where I came from when it's safe, and otherwise I'll go back to a return hub. Can we not all agree on that?
What I would say to the honourable gentleman is results are all that matters. It's incumbent on me to think about the way that we have to reform this system, to make a public argument for it, to win that argument, to persuade people, and then to get this done. What I care about now is making sure that we can deliver these proposals, and we will do so. And then I need to make sure that the Home Office is in a position to make sure that we can really run a system properly, administratively, and also fairly in the future. That is what matters. This is a low-trust environment for the public. All of us involved in politics know that, and in the end the public have heard a lot of rhetoric from a lot of people, but this government intends to get on and deliver and to win the trust of the British people.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I broadly welcome the changes to ILR, but I seek clarification about whether there will be revocation for those already settled who break the law, and why is the government proposing making low-skilled workers who are net fiscal recipients wait for 15 years for ILR instead of telling them to just leave the country. And on the broader question of immigration, the government says it wants to get the numbers down. The Boris wave was a disgrace, that is correct. But of the measures implemented so far by this government, they are projected only to reduce the numbers of people coming here by 61,000 a year. That's before we take into account the new rules for Gaza, for Afghan dependents, and for the schemes launched this week by the Home Secretary. And it's in fact less than the revision by the ONS of the numbers coming last year. So if she does want to get the numbers down, when will the Home Secretary bring forward new policies to make sure that the number of visas issued falls by the hundreds of thousands as soon as possible?
The ability to revoke indefinite leave to remain, those powers are not going to change as a result of this, and he will know that the specific provisions in relation to foreign national offenders are also going to be unaffected. Separately, we are going to review the threshold in relation to criminality because the current rules have worked on the basis that you cannot qualify for indefinite leave to remain if you've received a sentence of 12 months or more, but given the changes that are being brought forward in the sentencing bill and others, we will be looking at all of that threshold in its entirety. He's raised a point around retrospectivity. We will also be reviewing that as we review all of the criminal thresholds that apply here. He said another question in the middle bit, and forgive me, I missed it. Well, if he will write to me, I will come back to him because I think he's asking about wage thresholds. He made a final point, which I did pick up, which was around modelling and essentially the numbers that we're talking about and whether 61,000 a year reduction is the right number. Let me just say to him, look, I will be coming to this House on a regular basis to be held to account for the delivery of these reforms and those that I set out on Monday in relation to the asylum system.